The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes 1893, Episode 10, The Greek Interpreter. Welcome back, fellow detectives. After witnessing how criminal money corrupted an innocent medical practice in the resident patient case, you might think you understand how elaborate deceptions can hide in plain sight within respectable society. But today's mystery takes us into the shadowy world of international intrigue, where family secrets span continents and languages become weapons in a deadly game of kidnapping and extortion. Have you ever wondered what dark talents might run in Holmes's own family, and whether his brilliant deductive abilities could be inherited traits rather than learned skills? Prepare yourself for one of the most revelatory cases in our chronicles, where we'll meet the most powerful mind in the British government, and where ancient Greek becomes the key to solving modern crimes that threaten both fortunes and lives. Picture yourself on a comfortable evening in late September 1888, when autumn's first chill makes the fire at 221B Baker Street particularly welcoming, and Holmes has been unusually reflective about the nature of inherited abilities and family characteristics. You're enjoying a quiet discussion about the origins of detective talent when an unexpected visitor arrives who will forever change your understanding of the Holmes family's extraordinary capabilities. "Watson," Holmes begins thoughtfully, setting down his evening paper. "You've often wondered about the source of whatever deductive abilities I might possess. Tonight, I believe you're about to meet the person who will answer that question definitively, and perhaps make you appreciate that my own modest talents are merely pale reflections of true brilliance." Watson looks up with curiosity from his medical journal. "Holmes, you've never mentioned having family members involved in detective work. Are you expecting a relative who shares your investigative interests?" But the knowing smile on Holmes's face suggests that this revelation will be far more significant than Watson imagines. Think about this moment, detective. What would it mean to discover that Holmes's legendary abilities are actually inherited traits, and that somewhere in London lives someone whose intellectual powers make even the great detective seem ordinary by comparison? How might such a discovery change your understanding of genius and its origins? The doorbell rings with precise, measured timing, and Mrs. Hudson announces the arrival of a visitor, whose very presence seems to fill the room with an aura of governmental authority and intellectual weight. "Mr. Mycroft Holmes has called to see you, sir." Holmes rises with obvious respect, and perhaps a hint of nervous anticipation. "Watson, allow me to introduce my brother Mycroft, 7 years my senior, and possessed of deductive powers that make my own seem like parlor tricks. He holds a position in Her Majesty's government that is both more important and more secretive than most people could imagine." Mycroft Holmes enters with the measured dignity of someone accustomed to wielding enormous power behind the scenes. "Sherlock, Dr. Watson, I apologize for this unscheduled visit, but a matter of international delicacy requires the unique combination of Sherlock's investigative skills and my governmental resources. A case has arisen that threatens both individual lives and diplomatic relations." Watson immediately notices the family resemblance while observing crucial differences. The same piercing intelligence in the eyes, the same aristocratic bone structure, but where Sherlock is lean and energetic, Mycroft possesses the substantial build of someone whose battles are fought with mind rather than body. Think about the implications, detective. If Mycroft's position in government is so sensitive that he can't discuss it openly, what kind of case would force him to emerge from his secretive world and seek his brother's help? What international crisis could require both official governmental power and unofficial detective investigation? The case involves Mr. Melas, a Greek interpreter who has been drawn into a kidnapping and extortion scheme with international ramifications, Mycroft explains with characteristic precision. The criminals are using his linguistic abilities to facilitate crimes that could damage Britain's diplomatic relationships if handled improperly through official channels. Holmes leans forward with sharp interest. An interpreter being coerced into criminal activity suggests that language barriers are being exploited to conceal the true nature of the crimes from both victims and law enforcement. What specific threats have been made against Mr. Melas to ensure his cooperation? Mycroft's account reveals the sophisticated nature of the criminal conspiracy. Melas was approached by two men claiming to need translation services for a private business negotiation. They transported him to a house in an undisclosed location where he discovered that the negotiation was actually a violent interrogation of a kidnapped Greek businessman. The psychological manipulation becomes clear as the story unfolds. The criminals kept Melas blindfolded during transport, making it impossible for him to identify the location where the crimes were taking place. They threatened his life if he refused to translate their questions and demands, but they also threatened to kill the victim if Melas warned him about the true nature of the situation. Watson's medical background makes him focus on the human cost. So Mr. Melas was forced to participate in torture and extortion while being unable to help the victim without endangering both their lives. What kind of information were the criminals trying to extract from their prisoner? The answer reveals a conspiracy involving stolen inheritance and international fraud. The victim, Polkratides, is a wealthy Greek merchant whose family owns valuable properties in both Greece and London, Mycroft continues. The kidnappers are trying to force him to sign documents transferring ownership of these properties to criminals who claim to be his relatives but are actually professional fraudsters. Holmes recognizes the international scope of the crimes. This isn't simple kidnapping for ransom, but an elaborate scheme to steal an entire family fortune through forged documents and coerced signatures. The criminals need Kratides alive long enough to complete the legal transfers, but they'll certainly kill both him and Melas once the fraud is completed. Think about the complexity of this conspiracy, detective. How would criminals coordinate property fraud across multiple countries while keeping their victims hidden and their interpreter silent? What kind of organization would have the resources and connections to execute such an international crime? The investigation reveals disturbing evidence about the scope of the criminal network. Melas has been forced to participate in multiple translation sessions, suggesting that Kratides has been held captive for weeks, while the criminals work systematically through legal documents and property transfers. Mycroft's governmental resources provide crucial intelligence. Our diplomatic contacts in Athens confirm that several properties belonging to the Kratides family have recently changed ownership through suspicious legal procedures. The new owners are connected to a criminal organization that specializes in inheritance fraud targeting wealthy Greek families. Holmes realizes that time is running out for both victims. Once the property transfers are complete, the criminals will have no further use for either Kratides or Melas. We must locate them immediately, but the kidnappers have been careful to prevent Melas from providing any useful information about the location where he's been taken. The breakthrough comes when Holmes applies his deductive methods to the limited clues available. Melas may have been blindfolded during transport, but his other senses were still functioning. The sounds he heard, the smells he detected, the time spent traveling. All of these details can help us triangulate the location where the crimes are taking place. Watson assists in analyzing the sensory evidence. Melas mentioned hearing church bells at specific intervals, the sound of trains passing in the distance, and the smell of a gasworks nearby. These details, combined with the travel time from his pickup point, should help us identify the general area. Holmes's knowledge of London's geography proves invaluable. The combination of church bells, railway lines, and industrial odors points to a specific district in South London. There are only a few areas that match all these characteristics within the travel time Melas described. The investigation leads to a desperate race against time. We have perhaps hours before the property transfers are completed and the criminals eliminate their victims. The house must be located and surrounded before they realize their scheme has been discovered. Mycroft coordinates official resources while maintaining the secrecy necessary to protect diplomatic relationships. I've arranged for plainclothes police officers to assist, but this must appear to be a private investigation rather than an official governmental operation. The international implications require absolute discretion. The rescue operation reveals the full horror of the criminals' methods. Kratides has been tortured for weeks, forced to sign documents he couldn't read while being told they were harmless business papers. His physical and mental condition shows the effects of prolonged captivity and systematic abuse. Holmes confronts the criminals with evidence of their international fraud network. This isn't an isolated crime, but part of a systematic operation targeting wealthy Greek families across Europe. The same methods have been used in Paris, Vienna, and Constantinople to steal millions in property and assets. The resolution brings both rescue and revelation. Cratides and Melas are saved, but the criminal's leader escapes, suggesting this international conspiracy will continue to operate in other locations. The immediate threat is ended, but the larger criminal organization remains active. Mycroft's role in the resolution demonstrates the scope of his governmental influence. The property transfers are quietly reversed through diplomatic channels, the victims receive medical care and protection, and the investigation's details are classified to prevent international incidents. Holmes reflects on the case's broader implications. The Greek interpreter demonstrated how language barriers can be weaponized by international criminals who exploit both linguistic isolation and diplomatic complications to conceal their crimes from law enforcement. The investigation also revealed the importance of family connections. Mycroft's involvement showed how governmental resources and private detective work can complement each other when official procedures might be too slow or too public to protect innocent victims. Watson gains new appreciation for the Holmes family's extraordinary abilities. Meeting Mycroft explained the source of Sherlock's talents, while revealing that genius can manifest in different forms. Sherlock's active investigation versus Mycroft's strategic coordination. Years later, Holmes would often reflect on this collaboration with his brother. The Greek interpreter case proved that some crimes require both official and unofficial approaches to achieve true justice. Neither governmental power nor private investigation alone could have saved Cratides and Melas. The case also highlighted the growing internationalization of crime. As transportation and communication improve, criminal organizations are becoming more sophisticated in their ability to operate across national boundaries. Law enforcement must adapt to match these evolving threats. So tell me, detective, did you suspect that Holmes's abilities were inherited rather than entirely self-developed? What does this case teach us about how international criminals exploit language barriers and diplomatic complications? And most importantly, how do we balance the need for secrecy in sensitive investigations with the public's right to understand the threats they face? This remarkable mystery introduced us to the most powerful mind in the British government, while demonstrating how family talents can manifest in different but complementary forms. The Greek interpreter, who was forced to facilitate crimes, became the key to exposing an international conspiracy that threatened victims across multiple countries. Mycroft's emergence from governmental shadows proved that some cases require the unique combination of official resources and unofficial methods to achieve justice while protecting diplomatic relationships and international stability. Join me next time as we investigate the Naval Treaty, a case where stolen state secrets threaten to topple governments and destroy careers, and where Holmes must recover documents so sensitive that their loss could change the balance of power in Europe itself.